Hey Phantom Fam, it's me, your girl, Nat. Before we start the episode, I'd like to talk about today's sponsor, Love Shop. With 23 stores, 23 years of sex expertise, over 25,000 unique products in stock, and over 1 million satisfied customers globally, Love Shop has everything you could ever need for your spicy times. Being a pansexual woman myself, and in an open relationship, it's really important for me to support businesses that I feel are making changes in the world. And I feel Love Shop is doing just that. Love Shop is passionate about destigmatizing and normalizing sex and the conversation around it. So, if you're interested in spicing up your sex life, head to loveshoptoys.com/WITV20 and enter code WITV20 to save 20% off almost all regular price products. Get free 2 to 4 day discreet shipping on orders over $69 and on a huge variety of high quality toys. Love Shop has something for everyone, and I mean literally everyone. And it's a great way to support our podcast. We believe life is too short for bad sex. So what do you say? Go check them out on Instagram at Love Shop Toys.
Hey Phantom Fam, welcome back to another day, another week, another episode of Wading into the Void. As you know by now, I'm Kate.
And I'm Nat.
And this is Wading into the Void, post-Paracon edition.
Oh yeah.
We're back from the con, everyone! And it has been an eventful few weeks, to say the least.
Yeah.
Since we've been back, life has been, let's say,
Chaos.
interesting.
Absolute chaos on my end.
I fell, sprained my ankle, or at least that's what I'm fucking saying it is. I've been witnessing more spirits moving around in my peripheral vision, literally fucking sprinters in my hallway, like, what is it, Natalie? Naruto style or whatever it is?
Naruto?
Like, yeah.
Naruto.
Full-blown sprint. Nat's sister Dana has been experiencing a bit of that herself from what I've heard, and Nat just said her life has been freaking chaos, so.
But I don't think that's related to Paracon. I think my life is just always kind of in a state of chaos, and I'm a chaotic person. Like we've said multiple times before, I have bipolar disorder, so I'm currently in my most manic state, so.
She's just doing her thing. She's doing her thing. And basically with that small little intro, we want you to know that the ghosts are feeling lively and they're popping off. And I just noticed right here, I said, for example, and I quote, "The other night I was lying in my bed doing homework and I got a heavy cold chill and felt like I was being watched. Then, suddenly, I saw something sprint from one side of my hallway to the other, and I was just like, okay, that's fun."
Oh, just a casual ghost running across your hallway?
Yeah, like full-blown sprint, like literal child. So I was like, I'm pretty sure something followed me home from Paracon at Pennhurst Asylum. And so I reached out to our good old friend who we just had on last episode, Nico, and she was like, yeah, did you set any intentions? And I was like, what? She's like, did you set like any barriers so like they can't follow you home and things? So I was like, no.
Hell no, motherfucker.
I'm like, I didn't think to do that.
We're not of the intelligent group of people.
We're still newbies, you know, with the whole investigation, boundary setting thing. So yeah. I was just like, no. She was like, maybe do that going forward. And I'm like, okay. So, Nat, what about you? Any strange stories? Anything you need to get off your chest? Or do you just want to jump into tarot in today's episode?
I don't have any stories.
Tarot it is, then.
It's like, unless you want to hear about how shit my life is on a day-to-day, I don't have any paranormal stories. I'm sorry.
That's a story in and of itself.
So I got that sage spray when we went, which we'll probably talk about at some point. Yeah. I've been doing my entire fucking body, like, before I go to bed, hoping that it'll fucking help me. But, like, so, okay. I'm doing a quick sidetrack before I go into tarot. So, I've been seeing my therapist for about a year now, and we just recently discussed, instead of having a session once every week, we're gonna do once every other week. So that is supposed to be something good, and then all shit hit the fan. But now,
don't take it personally, it usually does.
Yeah. But now I'm on a new insurance, and it doesn't pay for my therapy, so it's like 5 times the cost that it normally is. So as much as I desperately need the therapy, I can't.
Okay, so listeners, if you know of any, like, medical therapeutic grant programs that could possibly be located within the northeast of the United States, please send them our way. Our email is waitingintothevoid@gmail.com. Thank you!
That would be much appreciated if you want this podcast to continue and don't want me to die.
Jesus Christ.
Alright, let's get into the tarot! Woo! Alright. We're doing
emotional overload.
We're doing a classic, the Rebel deck. I thought it would be fitting to do something short and sweet for the Oracle, just to kind of get us into it a little bit. So, the Rebel deck is the Oracle with attitude, 0 filter plus 0 fucks equals all fun. If you want to get yourself a Rebel deck, go to rebeldeck.com. And they should really sponsor us. We should email them.
Yeah, a blind email isn't gonna hurt anything.
So, the card that literally fucking flew out of the box as I was opening it, literally
it was actually hilarious. Like, it didn't, like, pop. It fucking launched itself.
Like, it almost went across the room. It says, ask a fucking expert. Don't rely on your friends or the internet. Listen to a damn professional. Which, what did I just fucking say? What did I just fucking say?
Oh my gosh. That's
so funny. I love this
United States healthcare.
United States healthcare, let's go! So, yeah, whatever. It's true. Listen to a professional. Don't listen to other people.
Unless they're your spirit guides.
It's true.
Then listen to them.
So, for the tarot deck for today, I'm kind of throwing it back to one I haven't used that much. Just because I went to the Northshire bookstore in Saratoga, and they had a bunch of decks by these people, and I really wanted to get one. So, I'm probably going to get another one at some point in the future. But, I figured I'd do this one. So we're going to use the Mystic Mondays Tarot by Grace Duong. I really like this deck. I really don't use it that much, but I really like the artwork of this deck. I think it's really pretty. Very modern, kind of. But yeah.
I have this deck as well.
It's a really pretty deck. So today we got the 5 of Wands upright. Which symbolizes competition, diversity, and rivalry. The smell of competition is high in the air. Everybody around you seems to have an opinion, and no one is willing to listen. A little competition never hurt nobody, but only if people are willing to compromise down the line. If you're seen as a rival, it's only because you have many talents to offer that cannot be ignored. Diversity is good and much needed, whether it is opinions or culture. Differences can allow for greater understanding and compassion on a human level. Being seen and heard is everyone's desire, and if you want that for yourself, you must be willing to do the same for someone else. There may be an inner conflict playing out where you are pulled by the different parts of yourself. Tune in to what you truly want. Only you know what's best for you. Which, this really resonates for me. Just because while I was in Saratoga this weekend, I also went to see a local psychic. I can't remember what her name is. I have her business card somewhere. Next time I'll grab it and shout her out or something. But I don't think she has any type... She might have a social media, but I'm not sure. She's a really nice old lady. But she was basically like, you think everyone around you is judging you and thinking a certain way about you, but you're really the only person judging yourself. And once you stop doing that, you're going to realize that nobody around you, like, cares.
Yeah.
About what you think that they're judging you about. So, yeah, I don't know. That kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
I would totally agree with that. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side of that, I entered my company's first annual mac and cheese competition. So, I have been directly challenged. Someone asked me if I was entering. And I was like, absolutely, I'm entering. And they were like, oh, well, I guess it's on then. And I was like fucking Donkey Kong.
I'm like, I'm gonna make the
best goddamn mac and cheese you've ever had in your life, okay? We're talking fun noodles, because you can't not have fun noodles.
You gotta have fun noodles.
Which should give me extra points right there.
Yeah, I would.
Then I'm
Spiral?
That's what I'm thinking.
Spiral's
I'm thinking some cavatappi. I'm like, let's fucking do it. I'm talking extra sharp cheddar cheese.
Yes.
Some mozzarella cheese for some cheese pull, because you need cheese pull. Then I'm going to do some brie in there for a little bit of age. Yeah. Add some creaminess. And then I'm also going to do a wild card. Some Land O'Lakes American cheese.
That'll be good for the meltiness.
Yes, exactly. And then I'm also going to mix in some ham and some bacon in there. Ooh. You know, like a little bit extra. And then I'm going to top it with some toasted breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese. But mixed in there, I'm also going to have some fresh garlic and shallots for extra flavor.
That sounds
going
good.
To be delicious.
Stop, I'm hungry!
I have never made that recipe before. I came up with it in my own head as soon as I saw this mac and cheese competition, so I will keep you up to date on how good it is.
Seriously, for real. Like, that's how I make most of my food. I just fucking make it up in my head. And then it ends up being fucking great. I'm like, sure, work.
I'm like, I know this goes together. I know that goes together, so let's go! So yeah, Nat needs therapy, and I have a mac and cheese competition.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you, Taro.
Oh, and you know what? Hang on. Pause. Because I know we're going to be talking about, like, a lot of other people later on. But
yeah,
I just want to give a quick shout out. Because we received a lovely, lovely message.
Oh, yes. No, this is great.
Because, you know, we talk about our mental health a lot. Specifically me. But we are very transparent on this podcast. And we received the most lovely message from Eric Phillips. Eric, you know who you are. You are so fucking sweet. And that message you sent literally made me cry while I was at work.
I almost got there, Eric. It was pretty freaking good. I was like,
I cry over everything, so...
I do too, that's why I was surprised. I was like, wow, I'm holding down the fort at work today, apparently. But, no, Eric, that was so amazing seeing that message. You truly don't understand how much that meant to us.
Especially to such a small podcast with such a small following. Getting a message like that of somebody who's like... I'm having withdrawals from not listening to you. Like, that makes me feel so fucking happy that there's people out there that genuinely love listening to us that aren't, like, our family and friends.
my favorite part of the message, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing, because part of it's Eric's privacy, you know, his thing, but the fact that he told us he had already listened to the entire podcast and was waiting for more, and actually went back and restarted the fucking pod from the very beginning, because he couldn't go without it. I was so like, crazy. This is awesome! And I'm like, thank you for dealing with the horrible underwater disgustingness of our original audio.
Oh, man.
Was that a ambulance?
It's some kind of sirens. I have my window open. I haven't put in my air conditioner yet.
Just so you know, that is overdose number 10 going to the ER right now in our town.
That's so fucked up.
Tell me I'm wrong.
You're probably not.
See? Just for Monties.
Alright, let's get into it.
Alright, let's do it. If you haven't sensed the small trend that we've been discussing so far, I will break the news that the topic of the discussion for today's episode is Pennhurst Asylum.
Woo, 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 woo.
We're more than 50 episodes in, so you should know the rundown, but for any newcomers, what the fuck? Newcomers, this is how it's going to go down. First, I'm going to go into the history of Pennhurst, and then we'll chat about the hauntings taking place. However, we have a little bit of an added twist. At the end, we're going to discuss our trip to Paracon and our personal experiences. So if that sounds like fun to you, stick around, get comfy, and let's get into it.
Let's go!
Like many of these facilities, they did not set out with the intention to make people's lives a living hell. They aimed to assist and improve the lives of those that needed additional assistance. However, as we all know now, that was not the case by the end. It couldn't have been farther from the truth, especially with Pennhurst in mind. The idea for the Pennhurst project began way back in 1903. So it's got some longevity to it, when the Pennsylvania legislature authorized the creation of an institution for the mentally disabled and epileptic. Which, maybe it's just like I don't really understand epilepsy too well, but it always seems to me when I'm going back and researching something like this, it's always mentally disabled and epileptic. So, like, what did people have with epileptic folk at that time? Like, I don't understand why they're sending them to, like, mental institutions.
I guess I don't really understand epilepsy either. Just because...
Like, I understand they didn't have, like, a solid treatment plan. They didn't understand it all that well, but I just can't make the connection in my own head of why they would be grouped together. Yeah, so, if someone listening knows...
I can understand how it can be something that's really, like, debilitating. Yeah. If it's a severe case of epilepsy, but, like, a lot of the cases aren't completely disabling.
No.
So, I mean, maybe it was, like, severe cases or something.
Maybe. All in all, the goal is to take those with mental disabilities, remove them from psychiatric hospitals, prisons, and the current poor situations they were living in, and put them in an environment in which they would thrive. So, you know, the idea sounds amazing, fantastic, right? Like, taking them out of a situation where they're struggling, they're barely able to get by, and putting them in one that they're gonna fucking succeed. But this is still the early 1900s, and the understanding of mental disabilities and how to properly treat those disabilities was very poor. Surprisingly, the Pennsylvania legislature committed themselves to discovering how many local residents lived with various mental disabilities. And after their studies, found that 1,146 people were being housed in asylums, as well as 2,627 in poorhouses, county care hospitals, reformatories, and prisons. They believed that these people needed some form of immediate care, and they quickly got to work on the series of buildings that we now know as Pennhurst Asylum. So they actually did their research. They did the groundwork to figure out how many people they were dealing with to properly build the right facility for this, and it still went to shit. The facility, then known as the name Pennhurst State School and Hospital, was to be broken up into two separate groups. One group would be for the educational and industrial department, and the other for the custodial or asylum department. In addition, the institution was required to house no fewer than 500 inmates or patients, and there would be extra room to accommodate additional persons. All in all, it took 5 years to build, and construction lasted from 1903 to 1908. So we're still really early in the 1900s when this project's completed. The first set of buildings were constructed on just shy of 634 acres of what was considered the lower campus. But what buildings were they exactly? F was the girls' dining room, G was the kitchens and storeroom, H, I, and K were a cottage for girls, N was the boys' dining room, P was the teacher's home, Q, T, U, and V were cottages for the boys, R was a school, W was laundry and sewing, and X was the powerhouse. So already we have a good solid set of buildings to go off of. By 1930, the first buildings on the lower campus, which was known as the female colony, were completed and named Pershing, Buchanan, Abaddon, and Keystone. Capitol Hall was built shortly after World War II, along with the Devon Building, which was constructed on the lower campus. We had the pleasure of going into the Devon Building. After all the building was complete, there was a total of 32 buildings sitting on a 1,400-acre property. 1,400 acres, that's quite large. However, now very few of the buildings remain. Many have been demolished or are now, I'm just going to start over with that one. Many have been demolished or are now uninhabited due to rot, faulty foundations, or simply being lost to time. Among the buildings demolished were Buchanan, Abaddon, Keystone, Capitol, which were demolished in 2018, and Rockwell, Noble, Franklin, and Hershey, all of which were recently demolished in 2020. So, a good portion were around up until 2020, but had to be, unfortunately, ripped down due to lack of treatment for them. And as for the treatment of the individuals staying within Pennhurst walls, it was not great, to put it lightly. Very lightly, feather touch lightly. Patients were segregated from the public and even sterilized in some cases so they could not reproduce. So
What?
Let's start with that.
Wait.
Yeah.
What?
No, they completely sterilized some of these people so they couldn't reproduce. This is the 1900s.
That's horrifying. But also,
And-
where can I sign up?
Jesus. Oh my lord. Women's reproductive health 2023. This pattern began on November 23rd, 1908, when the first patient was admitted to the institution. And within 4 years of operation, Pennhurst was already overcrowded, reaching more than 3,500 patients within its walls at once. More than 70 times its planned capacity.
Do you remember how much the first asylum was?
Trans-Allegheny?
Yeah, because I remember that one was like way over.
I want to say theirs was like 750, but they were around 5,000 at one time.
Yeah.
If I remember right. They were very similar situations.
Yeah.
And pretty close in number, honestly. Yeah. So, like I just said, it was more than 70 times its capacity, and it was under immense pressure from the state of Pennsylvania to admit immigrants, orphans, and criminals. So basically by now, Pennhurst is playing the role of a catch-all for displaced people that just need somewhere to stay.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see, it did not take long to squash the original goal of assisting those that needed that extra help.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And for the institution to simply turn into just another run-of-the-mill torture chamber. that we know as the many asylums around the United States today. Within the walls of Pennhurst, the patients were broken down into several categories. And please, please, please keep in mind this is what they referred to them as, not what I am choosing to.
Okay.
I'm keeping it as historically accurate based on the resources I was able to pull.
So,
and this
probably trigger warning. There's probably some not very politically correct wording.
Yes, this could definitely offend some people.
Okay.
But all of this I pulled directly from one of Pennhurst's brochures that they actually gave, and annual reports that they would hand out to their trustees and board members and sometimes to the public. Mm-hmm. This one was from, I believe, around 1950. So, residents were classified into mental categories of imbecile or insane, into physical categories of epileptic or healthy, and into dental categories of good, poor, or treated teeth when admitted. Because, yes, they took their dental hygiene very seriously here.
That's so weird.
Fucking random, right?
Yeah.
Each patient among what the fuck? Each patient, once being admitted, was also assigned to an industry that they would work in. Those included mattress making, shoemaking and repair, grading, farming, laundry, domestic duties, sewing, baking, butchering, painting, and working in the store. So if you haven't wrapped your head around it and grasped it, essentially Pennhurst was its own community that rarely needed outside intervention to help or thrive.
Which can sometimes be a good thing, but is usually mostly bad.
Exactly. It was to the extent that they even had their own railroad.
Wow.
It was so they could, stop outsiders from coming in, and never had anyone necessarily leave the premises to get additional necessities. They literally wanted the whole thing to operate as its own, city within a city.
Interesting.
Because they didn't want outsiders to see what was happening at the institution. This was part in due to legislation passed in Pennsylvania in 1913, which stated, and once again, not me, this is a direct quote, "Every feeble-minded person is a potential criminal." The general public, although more convinced today than ever before that it's a good thing to segregate the idiot or the distinct imbecile, they have not yet been convinced as to the proper treatment of the defective delinquent, which is the brighter and more dangerous individual.
What?
Yeah, no kind words ever said.
That's insane.
None. Actually awful. And that was written in official legislature in the state of Pennsylvania in 1913.
That's so shocking to me.
If you go into the fucking historical records, you will find that quote. It's terrible. This twisted mindset continued and increased in 1916 when the Board of Trustees of Pennhurst initiated a plan to increase the capacity of the institution by constructing cottages specifically for women to segregate them from the men. And this was, of course, to prevent pregnancies. Mm-hmm. However, that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as the maltreatment is concerned. Sadly, injuries were common, reaching 833 minor and 25 major injuries reported in January 1977 alone. Yeah, 1 month alone. 833 minor injuries.
From
25 major injuries. Let's get into that, shall we?
Is this part of them working?
No. It was partially due to the severe understaffing.
And probably overcrowding?
Yes. Reports of violence include a patient biting off 3/4 of another patient's earlobe when the other resident was asleep on January 8th, 1975.
What the fuck?
And another patient was reported to have pushed a resident to the floor so hard, resulting in the patient's death not long after. So that is that overcrowding, lack of staffing, being able to watch every patient and what they're doing at all times, you know. But that behavior also doesn't help what's being reported in the news, you know, where they're already talking about the violence of these people and how absolutely freaking awful they are. And yes, catch the sarcasm. But this definitely doesn't help if anyone gets their hands on any of these reports.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Patients that showed any of these trends of misbehavior were immediately placed into isolation, which we now know is not a good idea. Some of those institutionalized sought out attention so badly that they would self-inflict injuries to get out of the isolation. Patients who had tried to bite a staff member or another patient, like those mentioned before, had their teeth forcefully removed.
What?
Yeah, no, their teeth were ripped out. You see, oddly enough, dentistry was a huge thing at Pennhurst, which to each their fucking own.
So they're like, you gotta have good teeth, but if you do something bad, we're gonna rip all of them out and make you
pretty much
toothless.
Yeah, no, why there was dentistry in a facility like this, I don't understand. Like, I understand maybe having a dentist to work on the needing of people's teeth needing to be repaired or, like, general checkups.
Yeah.
But why are we forcefully ripping people's teeth from their head?
Yeah, what is the point?
Why?
That's gonna make it even harder for you to care for them. Because they're not gonna be able to chew normal foods.
No.
They're gonna have to eat, like, mashed up food.
Mashed potatoes all day, every day. That's the only thing these people get to eat. Or meat ground up that they drink through a fucking straw. Like, I don't get it. And considering how many people they subjected to the torture of forcibly removing their teeth, I suppose they needed some sort of internal operation, but, you know, that could have been avoided if you didn't forcefully remove people's teeth.
But also, like, why was, like, biting and stuff such a big problem?
Because apparently people just wanted to bite each other.
Yeah.
Like, I can understand if the patient...
Yeah, it's gotta be because of understaffing and overcrowding. Like, you just have too many people who are not being watched properly, not being taken care of properly, and they're probably fucking sick of it.
Or staff members being either inappropriate or abusive to the patients, and the
they have
patients
no other way of defending themselves. Like, you have to think about it, like, how they've described these people. Yes, this is not politically correct terms, but these are people who have, like, disabilities and development issues and stuff like that. Like, biting is probably the, like, most common defense mechanism besides, like, hitting someone. Like, children bite all the time.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, your first form of defense.
A lot of these patients at Pennhurst were children.
Exactly.
Like, we're not talking about, like, a trans-Allegheny situation where it's mostly adults. These are actually children.
Yeah.
So, especially children that have some type of neurological disability, right? A lot of the times, they don't develop the ability to speak, if at all, until much later.
Yeah.
So, their only way of communication is through physical contact a lot of these times. Whether it's,
which makes it even more fucked up. They're taking children's teeth out of their heads?
Exactly.
Like, why?
It just really unsettles me to think about the amount of people they force to endure this.
Yeah, and that's insane. Like, one is too many. One is too
One
many.
is too many.
Like, what?
One fucking tooth is too many,
Yeah,
okay?
unless
Not
it's,
one
like,
person,
rotten
one tooth.
and killing them.
That is fair.
But, like,
Different situation.
doing it as a punishment, though, completely,
is awful.
like, yeah.
And one statistic I found was that thousands upon thousands of teeth were forcibly removed beneath Pennhurst Asylum. Beneath. So they weren't doing these quote-unquote procedures out in, like, the regular medical wing or infirmary, right? Or dentistry place. They were doing it fucking underground operation style, forcibly ripping these people's teeth out in the tunnels beneath Pennhurst. One of the most infamous doctors at Pennhurst was a man named Jesse J. Fear. Which, judging by the name, I'm sure you can probably guess where this is going.
Yeah.
This
maybe.
heinous creature is what I will call him. A poor excuse for a human being. Actually enjoyed torturing and inflicting pain on his patients. Shocker. With that kind of name. He did this by giving them the most painful injections available that didn't cause permanent damage. So, on my end, what I'm envisioning for this is, like, to give some context on these type of injections is, my guess is some form of a spinal tap or an epidural, right? Because these are in to cause pain. For shits and fucking giggles, this is what this guy did.
What the fuck? What was he injecting into them?
Anything he could get his hands on that wouldn't cause permanent damage. That's why I'm saying spinal taps or epidurals, because if you have no need for those types of injections, they cause immense pain.
Yeah.
And effects after, but not necessarily any long-lasting effects. So these poor people were probably enduring something similar to that, just to give the listeners an idea of maybe what they were enduring, right? Anything that would cause immense pain, it was his jam, it was his jelly, that's what he fucking did. He was truly one of the worst kind of monsters imaginable. The year 1968 marks the beginning of the fall of Pennhurst. Keep in mind, though, that's still 60 years of torture from when they accepted their first patient.
And you gotta think about it, too. They probably had people start there as children and just stay living there because they deemed them, like, too disabled to, like, live a normal life.
Yeah, they didn't want to let them back out into society so they could, if they got the chance, to tell what they were, you know, receiving at the hands of the people at Pennhurst.
So just imagine, like, when Pennhurst opened, going there as a child and being there the entire time it was open. That's horrifying.
It's definitely a possibility. Some of these people, if the first patient was, let's say,
like 5.
4, 5, somewhere around the age where maybe these mental disabilities or things like that are just starting to make themselves present. Especially at that time, a lot in females, right? Mm-hmm. Because up until very recently, all of the studies for, like, autism and ADHD, all of those studies were done on young boys. Mm-hmm. That's part of the reason why I myself was not diagnosed with ADHD until I was a sophomore in high school. Mm-hmm. Was because how it presents for women is not the same as how it presents for men, right? So you're probably dealing with a lot of these patients being female, at least at the beginning, is my thought. Mm-hmm. But 1968 was when it all kind of started to collapse. And this is when a reporter from the local NBC 10 News channel by the name Bill Baldini exposed the horrid conditions at Pennhurst. And he did this in a 5-part television news report titled Suffer the Little Children.
Can we watch this?
It's available on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, we could totally watch it. It's depressing as all fucking hell.
Yeah,
because
it's probably similar to...
Remember, it's children. Yeah. The report even made its way to the front page of the local papers and claimed that Pennhurst was the ultimate shame of Pennsylvania. which was really forward-thinking for this time, considering segregation had only ended 4 years prior. They considered this the shame of Pennsylvania, when segregation just ended 4 years prior. So, for the state to recognize that this maltreatment was horrific was honestly kind of surprising. At least I think that's my thoughts. I'd like to know what you think, Nat, but...
I mean... yeah, it's all fucked up. They're all fucked up.
It's fucked.
It's all fucked.
By the time the collapse had finally begun, more than 10,000 patients had gone through Pennhurst doors. Most of the time, the story went like this. Overwhelmed parents would drop off their children in hopes that the school would be able to provide and take care of them. Unfortunately, many of the children were abandoned and forced to become wards of the state, especially those that couldn't care for themselves.
Yeah.
This was the group that would enter the ranks of Pennhurst's most vulnerable. Because they literally had no one that was going to look for them, check in on them, they received no type of outside help. Regardless of the high number of patients and the special care they required, the state only gave the bare minimum of funds. The doctors, nurses, orderlies, and other caretakers were few and far between and struggled to meet the needs of the patients. And this wasn't necessarily due to the fact that no one wanted to work at Pennhurst. It was that Pennhurst could not hire anyone because they did not have the funds to do so. Because the state that started this project couldn't follow through and finish on giving them the proper funds that they needed.
That's so fucked up. There's so many things that are just so fucked up about this place.
Yes.
Like, people just abandoning their children.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Like, I'm sure that happens now, like, maybe not as often, but, like, how common it was.
Yeah.
Say, like, 50 years ago, or even, like, 100 years ago, to just abandon your kid if they have some type of disability, or they are not 100% able-bodied, is vile to me.
Oh, no. Totally agree. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's so disgusting. And the fact that the state saw a need for this, built this fucking penitentiary, and then... or not penitentiary, but this asylum, whatever, and then didn't give them the proper funding that they needed to take care of these people who are in need. Yeah. It's just so... And I'm sure this happened at, like,
plenty of other places.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Because it's just that time period where they're like, yeah, we have a problem, but we don't really feel like dealing with it, so we're just gonna
shut everyone over here.
We're just gonna treat these humans, these people, like they don't mean anything, and just kind of sweep them under the rug.
Yeah. No, they essentially created, like, in Australia.
Yeah.
Where they would take all of the people they did not want to deal with and just put them on their own island. That's literally what they did.
It's so gross. It's so gross how unempathetic people were and probably still are.
Definitely still are.
Yeah.
For sure. It's just, I would argue, not as outwardly vicious, right?
I feel like there's a lot more understanding now of what the term, like, able-bodied and disabled and stuff like that means, and I think a lot of people are more accepting and understanding nowadays, rather than, oh, I don't know what that is, I'm not even gonna take a chance to understand it.
Totally agree. And I'm gonna go a little bit into some of the findings I found, specifically on the care and maltreatment these people would receive. So let's get into it. This is going to get slightly graphic, just hella depressing, so maybe jump ahead like 3 minutes if you don't want to hear it. Most of the time, these poor people would be locked and trapped in metal cribs, basically just big enough for them to be able to move a little bit, where they would be left to sit in their own urine and feces for hours, days, basically until someone was able to get around to help them.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's in these cages that the patients would injure themselves or smear themselves with feces just to get a bath and some attention. Human interaction or a dash of compassion.
This sounds so similar to...
it's American Horror Story Asylum.
Oh, well,
Season 2.
I guess that too. But there's a real case about this girl. I can't remember what her name. I want to say her name is like Jean or something. Jeannie. Just this horrible case, and I don't think we'll ever cover it on the podcast because it's too fucked up and there's nothing paranormal or true crime about it. But this poor girl, ever since she was a baby, she had been like strapped to like a training potty and kept in like a locked crib. And,
oh my gosh.
Basically just like that, just like rotting away with nobody taking care of her. And her dad would come in and like bark at her and scream at her and like just scare her. And she would like mutilate herself at this very young age, and it's just this horrible story, and it is a real story. I can't think of her name. I want to say it's like Jeannie or something. We studied her in one of my psychology classes, and it's a really interesting story when learning about human behavior and how development works.
Yep.
So if you're interested in it, like, go look it up. You could probably find it. But she was a severely disabled child who was not properly taken care of, clearly. And cases like this and Pennhurst really just upset me so much. And I see similarities between that, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, these people do not deserve this at all.
No, they really don't. Instead of care, the overstaffed workers would drug patients into submission or chain them to beds. Some residents were isolated in solitary conditions for extensive periods of time, oftentimes for so long that the patients would regress and revert to toddler-like behavior. They would lose their will to speak, sometimes forgetting how to entirely, and many patients gave up fighting for care and attention and even abandoned their will to live. It was just awful. However, for the patients that weren't abandoned by their loved ones, any visiting family members were disgusted by the conditions they were witnessing. They often found their children bruised and uncared for, and as far back as 1912, the poor treatment was reported. So you have to know how bad it is that in 1912, this was already being reported.
That's so crazy. And they just let it happen for so long.
Nonetheless, though, it seemed like there was very little that outsiders could do to stop the abuse or improve the living conditions, because they had signed a contract and there was like really no way of getting out of it, because part of the issue was these people couldn't afford to care for these children that needed that extra help. They weren't going to be able to afford like a lawyer to challenge the state of Pennsylvania, because please keep in mind, that's who owns this fucking institution. Like, there's no way. For years, patients continued to be abused, raped, or even killed at the hands of callous staff and other suffering patients. There were reports that some patients were thrown several feet and hit with keys or heavy belts.
What the hell?
Only after Suffer the Little Children aired did the state seem to finally take notice of all the complaints and horrific treatment of their wards.
Oh yeah, now that they're finally getting publicity about it.
The extensive exposure forced the hands of the state lawmakers and people in government positions to pay attention when a massive lawsuit was filed on May 30th, 1974. In 1977, Halderman v. Pennhurst State School and Hospital was ruled upon by the U.S. District Judge Raymond J. Broderick, and he ruled that the conditions at Pennhurst violated the constitutional rights of the patients within its grounds. In 1983, 9 Pennhurst employees were convicted of charges spanning slapping or beating patients. Some were permanently confined to wheelchairs. Some of the lovely employees arranged actually a type of internal fucking fight club and arranged for patients to assault each other for their own enjoyment.
What? This is fucking insane.
By 1987, Pennhurst was overcrowded, patients were being abused left and right, and almost all of the state funding it was used to receiving had vanished. So the state completely just stopped funding the whole thing. This resulted in the institution finally closing its doors. All patients being released back into the care of their families, the state, or forcing them to figure out their own living conditions, in the case that they were able-minded enough to be able to actually kind of care for themselves.
That's scary. But it's probably a better situation than what they were in.
Absolutely. For 23 years, the now abandoned asylum was a popular spot for vandalism and graffiti. Artists who tagged the location looted buildings and caused massive amounts of destruction. Until in 2010, it was turned into a haunted attraction and renamed to Pennhurst Asylum.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the group of remaining buildings acts as a museum of sorts that serve as a reminder of what cruelty the people of Pennhurst were capable of, and what these children suffered while within the walls. The haunted attraction consists of 4 different sets: the morgue, containment, the asylum, and Mayflower Hall. These attractions let visitors walk the halls, see reconstructions of various rooms, and view various preserved artifacts. It should come as no surprise, though, that the haunted houses taking place cause a bit of a stir in spiritual activity, making it a must-visit site for paranormal investigators. Since 2017, overnight paranormal investigations have taken place inside the Mayflower building and the tunnels beneath the property. Pennhurst has been investigated by some of the biggest names in the paranormal industry, such as Portal to Hell's Katrina Weidman and Jack Osborne, the Ghost Hunters crew, and the team from Destination Fear. The latter 2 groups investigated the location while we were on site at Paracon.
True.
But what spirits could they have encountered? Let's find out. One of the most infamous spirits at Pennhurst goes by the name the King. King is an unfriendly entity believed to be a ghost of a maintenance man who worked at Pennhurst during the 40s or 50s. Apparently, he's a real dick. He's usually found lurking in the boiler room of the basement of the Mayflower building, but multiple people have reported encountering him or feeling his energy in other buildings. He typically manifests as a shadow figure, and he uses energy to touch or even choke people. How pleasant. People also tend to smell cigar smoke when he's near, and if you go to the boiler room, you'll see cigarettes on the floor. These items are presented to him as trigger objects. And King, seems to accept them, at least for a little while. And oddly enough, he seems to really like female visitors and is more eager to answer their questions. Many investigators label him as a poltergeist and sometimes a demonic entity. Regardless, he isn't a nice spirit and should not be taken lightly if you come into contact with him.
See, this would have been very helpful for me to know beforehand, before our investigations.
Mayflower isn't home to King alone, though. The building has 3 floors and a basement for a plethora of spirits to call home. According to the guides at Pennhurst, people have broken into the facility when it was left abandoned to perform satanic rituals that might have opened portals. And these people's markings are littered throughout the property. People who visit can be overwhelmed by feelings of dread and sadness, and investigation tools such as cameras and other paranormal equipment are known to stop working within the building.
Which happened to us with the GoPro.
It did. The GoPro stopped working. And you can still see, like, the symbols of, like, pentagrams and everything graffitied on the walls within the building. There's not really much they can do about that. It's just kind of how it is. Apart from the typical noises of slamming doors, footsteps, and the occasional sounds of a person vomiting...
Oh, goody!
There is a creepy music box that plays. The music seems to come from everywhere, but nobody has actually been able to locate the music box, which I find very interesting.
That is really interesting.
People also hear disembodied voices telling them to go away, that they'll kill them, or even, we're upset and I'm scared. Which all of those are equally terrifying in their own right. So, other incidents on the property include people seeing shadow figures in the Quaker building, including the apparition of a female child with long black hair and dangling arms. So, chick from The Ring, picture, that's what you're seeing. People have reported being pushed and scratched and even had things thrown at them. Inside the Limerick building, people have reported seeing the apparition of a woman in an old-style nurse's uniform. But keep in mind that both of these buildings can no longer be investigated due to structural instability. So people are viewing these apparitions from the outside. In addition to all of these, people mention making contact with an entity that we know well, and this entity goes by the name of Skippy. Skippy lives in the tunnels beneath Pennhurst and is thought to be a non-living entity and more of a negative presence that has attached itself to the asylum. So, like, it basically feeds off all that fear that, one, it could be from the residual hauntings of the poor people that were there, the energy that they had left behind because so much torture and sadness
or those
went on.
fuckers opening up portals, or what have you.
And just the excitement and fear of the paranormal investigators, right? Skippy likes to, basically throw down. People have reported having their hair pulled, having been scratched, and even bitten by Skippy. So if you're venturing into the tunnels, or anywhere within the confines of Pennhurst, be sure to set strict boundaries before trying to connect with the entities. Like we did not. With that being said, Nat, why don't we pop into talking about our experiences at Pennhurst and Paracon? And, you know, maybe some of the things we felt when we were there.
So, we started by waiting in a line for about 200 fucking hours.
And we have to talk about
Karen.
Our experience in line. Frickin' Karen. Oh my god. Everyone's, you know, so excited. They're in line. They're like, oh yeah, we're getting in. We're going to frickin' Paracon, right?
And 99% of the people were patiently waiting.
And then this woman, who can only accurately be described as a dumb fucking bitch, goes up to this woman who is working there. She's being very friendly, very kind, and she goes, "Excuse me, where is the VIP entrance?" And the woman goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, the VIP line's right up there. So if you can just go this way, follow the line, and you'll be like, blah, 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 blah." And this woman says to her, "This is fucking ridiculous. This is so unorganized." Did she say, like, you should be embarrassed or something?
Yeah,
like, you need to get your shit together.
You need to get your shit together. That's what she said.
And I was just like, damn, Karen, calm down.
Literally,
like, Jesus.
like, all four of us, so it was me, Katie, Dana, and our cousin Haley, who edited and recorded this wonderful video that y'all are probably gonna watch.
And we'll talk about later.
We'll talk about it later. The four of us, two people behind us, and like maybe some people in front of us, we're all like, "What the fuck?"
We were like all actually appalled by this woman's literal temper tantrum.
So if you, lady who freaked out, is ever listening to this, do better. Treat people
do better.
With respect, because you don't realize what your actions do to the people around you and what people think about you, because that's awful, and shit did not go her way at all.
No, because after we stood in line for probably an hour?
Yeah.
I'm guessing we finally made it past the security checkpoint, because you have to make sure you don't have any knives, guns, weapons, explosives to go into the abandoned asylum where all the weirdos of the United States are congregating. We made it past. We are in line to scan our tickets and get our passes for the weekend. And who do we pass? Who is waiting in the VIP line?
Still.
Fucking Karen!
Karen. Man. I saw Karen at one point during the trip after that and was like, wow, she's just miserable all the time.
She really is. She was not enjoying anything.
Why go if you're just gonna be miserable and be a bitch to everyone you talk to?
Mm-hmm. And, keep in mind, I understand that the VIP tickets were fairly expensive. What were they, $185?
Yeah.
I think, something like that. And given you did get a lot of perks with them, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to go have a mingling with all of the big names. They got to go to, fucking after-hour drinks with the people from Ghost Hunters, Destination Fear, Ozzy Osbourne, No,
not Ozzy Osbourne, Jack Osbourne.
Jack Osbourne.
If
who knows,
Ozzy was there, that would have been crazy.
All aboard! And then the Monster Hunter people, that I can't remember the name of their show for the life of me, but
it's
they got to do that.
Monster Hunters or some shit.
Yeah, they had literally an all-night investigation inside Pennhurst, led by the fucking people of Ghost Hunters. And
all we're saying, she had nothing to complain about, y'all. She just ruined everybody else's day.
Yes. Was it a little bit discombobulated?
Yes.
At the beginning. Yes. But after speaking to people that, one, worked there, and two other people that had been to events at Pennhurst before, this was the first event of this magnitude that they had ever done.
Yeah.
And yes, they oversold. Of course they did.
For sure.
They didn't know what to expect. But, this building is also funded just from events like this. That is the only way they get their funding. Yeah. So why would they not sell as many tickets as they could?
But also, I will say that the second day was a lot more organized.
It was. They really did much better the second day.
Yeah.
They kind of got a grasp on things. Mm-hmm. But all in all, I didn't think it was that bad. And for her to be throwing a literal hissy fit, no.
No, it was bad. Do better, Karen.
Do better. Small rant about Karen. Done.
Yeah. And other than that, it was pretty great. Some of the lines meeting some of the people there were very long. I know Haley waited for a really long time to meet Destination Fear. They took a break in between, and so she was just standing in the sun
and I can totally understand they want to take a break, right? Because their line started literally as soon as the day opened.
Yeah.
So they were going from 11 until what time did it end? 5? Mm-hmm. I think that whole time, other than one short intermission where they were doing a panel that people could sit and listen to, they were out there taking pictures.
Yeah.
So for them to take one break during the day, probably to go piss.
Yeah.
To eat. I can totally understand.
Yeah, exactly. So, that is, the level of, crazy long some of the lines were.
Haley stood in line for, I want to say, 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah. But she said it was worth it in the end, so.
Yeah, she said they were lovely. They seemed like they were really interacting with the people that were in their line. So, like, I don't blame them.
We cheered
like,
on Haley when she finally got up there, and they all, like, whipped their heads around to look at us, and we're like, woo! Yeah. And then we talked to everybody about our podcast, and it was great. So, if you're listening from Pennhurst, hi! Say hi!
How you doing? What's up?
What's up? Thank you for listening.
Hope you also didn't interact with Karen.
Hopefully not. But yeah, so it was overall really great time. We walked into 2 of the buildings, right? It was the Quaker and Mayflower.
Yes, those were the 2 that they had set up that you could just kind of wander through. And they had some, I would say, reconstructions set up. They had things barred off and things set up like their actual rooms. It was pretty cool.
It felt kind of weird in there to me. Like,
it was very heavy.
Yeah, we'd be walking around and it would just be like us, the 4 of us, in certain rooms, and you would feel like people are standing around you. Like, especially in some of the basements that we went to.
Yes.
Those were really creepy. Like, my favorite scene from the episode that we're gonna be releasing is when I'm like wading into the void in the toilets. Like, even in there was creepy. Like,
no, everything just felt so freaking heavy.
And like when you climbed up to like the top rooms and they're like completely like all black and nasty and like have dolls everywhere and pentagrams. It's like just really creepy.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. Honestly.
It was really like it was so interesting, and meeting like all the vendors that we met, all the people that we met, getting to see Bianca again. That was really nice. And
I feel like we need to throw a large shout out there to Bianca.
Yeah,
because if it wasn't for her telling us about Paracon, we wouldn't have gone.
No, we wouldn't have. We would have had no clue. And she's the one that told us so long ago, and I'm really glad that we even met her in the first place. Just pure coincidence meeting, which is just crazy to me. That we've met like all these other people just from this one coincidence meeting at the Shanley Hotel.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And all of the people that we met throughout the course of the weekend were just wonderful.
Literally.
Other than Karen.
Yeah, we met Karen out of our own will. So, everybody else that we met, everyone who we exchanged business cards with, and who will probably shout out most of them towards the end, they were all completely wonderful. We have some fun things planned with some of them maybe in the future. And overall, it was just a really great networking experience and just kind of putting our feelers out there a little bit. So
yeah, it was. Looking back now, it's so funny that first day. We were so nervous to give anyone like a business card or like introduce ourselves to anybody, even the podcast.
I think that first group of kids that we went on the investigation with,
they helped a lot.
Because, that first woman who said something, who talked about her podcast. And was like, oh, you have a podcast? What's your podcast about? And then everybody in our group was like, whoa, you have a podcast? And then we all handed out our business cards and stickers and stuff, and we're talking about it with them, and they thought we were hilarious, and that was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was great.
Yeah, and I think that second day, we were more like, this is a networking day, we gotta go meet people, we gotta go do stuff, we gotta do this and that, and that's exactly what we did. And we did
But we still had fun while we did it.
Yes, we had a lot of fun. We met a lot of great people. We did 2 mini investigations. One in the tunnels, which that was really creepy. And I think... The
other was in the infirmary.
The other was the infirmary. And that one was like, But...
To preface both of them, let's talk about the infirmary first.
Okay.
Because that was the more lackluster of the 2. So, the infirmary, each of these sessions, you only had 50 minutes. Let's start there. right?
Okay, even less so than that, because 50 minutes includes walking to where you're going and being told, like, everything about the fucking
rules.
building. And the rules.
Yes. So, by the time we got to the infirmary, which was, like, up a fucking hill, through a trail, and crazy distance away, and after the whole spiel of everything, people getting their equipment and everything that they needed to loan, we had, I believe, 20 minutes to investigate this place. And it was in broad daylight. We were doing this at, I believe, 1 in the afternoon, so it was bright as hell, and just, like, immediately walking into the place, I didn't really feel much. Like, it just felt kind of empty to me. Kind of hollow. Like, there wasn't anything going on there.
Yeah.
It could have been because it was daytime, that it was light outside, that, like, you didn't really have the energy that really comes out more at nighttime. I don't know. We were able to make contact with, I would say, maybe 1, 2 solid spirits, maybe.
Yeah.
It was just more kind of, like, touch and go. Right?
Yeah.
There wasn't anything solid. Like, you didn't sit down, you didn't really have an investigation.
And it just happened so quick. It was so hard to do anything. The tunnels definitely was a lot more interesting, a lot more sustenance, and I felt that one genuinely felt like more of an investigation. We had, like, immediate contact as soon as we sat down, and it was really cool because we had people, like, join us. We had Heather join us.
Yes.
Shout
Hi,
out to
Heather.
I think she's, like, a photographer, right? Heather's photography. I literally think it's, like, something like that. I don't even know.
She is very active on her social media.
Let me see if I can find it, actually. I think I sent it to you.
I know we follow her on our own page. And I usually try and like all of her stuff. But she has, like, this fun, eclectic room of all these antiques that she's collected. They're, like, old photographs. She has a bunch of old dolls. I want to say she got a haunted doll while she was at Paracon.
Yeah, so her socials are haunted_butterfly. Go check her out. She's super fucking cool. She joined us for the investigation just completely randomly, and she ended up being a delight to have around.
Yeah, she was wonderful.
Nice. Great photographer. Definitely go check her out.
If you're into spooky stuff, Heather's your gal.
Yeah. I don't know if we got any real footage of the tunnel investigation.
We didn't. A lot of our devices, I think, were malfunctioning, and then because we didn't have enough time to set up, like, any of our own cameras or anything, right? So by the time we sat down and we actually made contact with Skippy, we were pretty much just all in. Like, none of us were really paying attention to recording anything. We were just like, okay, we're doing this, we're experiencing this. Yes, Skippy, we're focusing on Skippy. And we were able to talk to him through the use of the dowsing rods and our EMF detector. Because we didn't have enough time, and we didn't have headphones to do, like, an Estes method. But I also, like, they didn't let you use your spirit boxes if you didn't have headphones.
Yeah, so
because they didn't want the noise to disturb anyone else.
Yeah, so we completely missed out on using the spirit boxes for the first investigation, which was really annoying, but whatever.
It would have been very fun to use them for that. But the biggest fault I would say I had with the investigations was, and I understand why they did it, a lot of the spaces were very small. And the groups were, for those spaces, quite large. There was a lot of, like, overlapping people on top of each other. So it wasn't like you had the whole building to investigate. It was, in the tunnels, you had a small stretch of the tunnel. And other than that, it was, like, blocked off or boarded off. Because they have it set up for their haunted attractions. Which, you know, fair enough, makes sense. But when you get, how many people would you say were in there? 20 plus?
Yeah, they definitely had more people than they should have, I think.
Just for the space.
Yeah, because it was just one long tunnel, and then there's really nowhere else to go. So people were just kind of like standing around, walking back and forth.
Yep. And like you could hear everything, obviously, because it was echoing. But all in all, I thought the first investigation in the tunnels was wonderful.
Yeah,
I would love to go back for an actual investigation at some point.
Definitely.
But Pennhurst Asylum, definitely a place worth visiting, worth investigating. It was amazing to be able to walk through the halls and feel the energy of the people that were, of course, tortured there. Like, you could definitely feel just the heaviness and the weight of this location.
Yeah.
And as fun as and light as we try and keep it on the show, and as we tried to keep it in our vlog, that is up on our YouTube channel while you're listening to this. Go check it out. Wading into the Void on YouTube. Like, we tried to keep it light. We tried to keep it fun, you know. Bring the energy that we usually do, which is crackhead energy. But at the same time, we kept out a lot of the times where we were just kind of walking around, I would say more solemnly, kind of just taking everything in, right?
Definitely.
There were parts where they had items on display, like blankets that the children had made, or toys that they were playing with, photographs of them sitting in classes, and things like that. And, you know, all of that was very heavy, could have been very depressing, you know, depending on how you look at it. But it was just such a great experience, and going to it basically like a walk-through museum was just something I would recommend that anyone do, just so they can familiarize themselves with some of the more terrible things that have, I would say, happened in this country. It's not all, you know, roses and sunshine. So, but yeah, definitely go check out the vlog on YouTube. Thank you to Haley for editing it. What did you do?
Katie, we don't need your audio for this one. I forgot to turn off the desktop audio. Oh my god. That's okay.
That's fine. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties. But it's fine. We're close to the end anyway. Who fucking cares?
It's fine. It's still gonna be a good episode.
Go check it out on YouTube. At Wading into the Void. It'll literally be like the first video that pops up because we have like nothing on the channel. So go check it out. Thank you, Haley, for editing it. You're fucking awesome. And now let's use the remainder of our time on this episode to, one, give a little shout out to something new that we are deciding to do. Today we are announcing officially the Wading into the Void Paranormal Investigation crew.
Hell yeah!
It is, of course, me, Nat, Dana, and Haley. Because it seems fitting, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, we wouldn't be opposed to other members joining. We are Southern Vermont based. It will be, you know, kind of like a vetting process. Of course, you have to be asked to join, so.
Yeah, and if you have any experience using, like, cameras or ghost hunting equipment or anything like that, and you enjoy being around crackhead people, definitely
spooky places,
you can always send in, you know, just a quick little letter to our email. I'm sure that would work just fine. Or seeing us on Instagram, messaging us there. Perfectly fine
reach
as
out.
well. Definitely.
We'd love to get to know you. Maybe have join our crew and go see some spooky places together.
Although I will say, nobody under 18.
Yes, no.
Putting that out there. Sorry, ghoul boys.
Maybe no one under 21.
I would also say no one under 21.
So if you're over the age of 21 and you are based near Southern Vermont and are looking to join a new paranormal crew, if you are yourself an amateur, because we are also somewhat newbies at this, reach out. wadingintothevoid@gmail.com. But other than that, let's do a little quick shout out for all the wonderful people that we met at Paracon.
Yes. Okay, I have the list. Hang on.
Because what's better than a small business supporting other small businesses?
So, I'm going to start out by shouting out Be a Witness, because I feel like we got a great picture with them.
Fucking yes.
They are like a traveling performance art like group.
Yep.
Really cool. You gotta check them out. We posted a picture with them and tagged them in it, but their Instagram is b.a.witness.now. Go check them out.
They're awesome. Their costumes are amazing. Their act is phenomenal.
Seriously.
And just, they did not break character once. It was amazing.
Yes. And I also want to give a shout out to Phantom Detectives.
Yes,
that was
hello.
The other paranormal group that we met. They are super cool, super nice. And then, of course, we have Madeline Rose Photography. I believe she's the one who took our
straight jacket
photos. Yes.
If you haven't seen those and you want to see them because they're a fucking hoot, go on our Instagram. They're there. But we also have the whole... what words am I even looking for? The whole interaction on video in the vlog.
That's true. Which I'm gonna have a showing party of the vlog tomorrow. Saturday with my whole family. So,
oh my gosh.
We're having our charcuterie and tarot party.
Fun.
Which you're invited if you have time on Saturday. It's at noon at my grandma's house.
Might take you up on it.
For sure, yeah. And then another shout out to SM Cryptic Creations. Those were the people who were like, hey, I think I've heard of your podcast. And we, nearly cried on the spot.
Yes.
Super cool people. I think they also might be going to that thing that we have planned. They mentioned
They're close to us. They said they've been there a few times.
Yeah.
So it'd be awesome if we could link up with them too. They were awesome. But one of the women was like, oh, what's your podcast name? Because we were doing the whole, interaction thing. And we were like, oh, Wading into the Void. She was like, oh, I think I've heard that before.
Yeah,
and Natalie and I were just like,
on the spot. Yeah.
You have?
And then another shout out to Strangled Heart.
Oh my gosh.
She makes super awesome cross stitching, which we bought like 3 each, probably.
Yeah. One is actually sitting on my desk at work. It is a cross stitch of Mothman.
Mine's a cross stitch of a little mushroom guy. It's awesome. And then a huge shout out to Haunted Emporium.
Yes.
For reasons that we're not disclosing yet, I don't think.
We haven't announced it yet. No.
So be on the lookout for that in the future.
Yes.
And I think that's everyone, unless there's anybody else you can think of.
I can't immediately think of anyone off the top of my head. I just know that we met so many wonderful people that weekend. And if you're listening to this and we didn't get the chance to meet you at Paracon, but you were there, totally reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook. You can find us at Wading into the Void. And, like we've said, YouTube. We're on YouTube now, too.
We're on YouTube now. And don't expect me to upload any of the episodes to YouTube, because we have episode 1, and that's it.
Our YouTube channel will strictly be vlogging and
paranormal we should probably unlist episode 1. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a little bit more fun content, getting it out there for you.
Yeah. Because some people don't like listening to a podcast, which is shocking. Shocking, I know. But now we offer you more content.
Yes.
You don't have to sit and listen to us. You can sit and watch and listen to us now.
Yes! But based off that vlog that is live while you're listening to this, I also created a short little series of shorts based off that vlog. And they're pretty much crackhead energy. They're just the laughs from the video. Totally go check it out. And, you know, if you're looking for something to wear or how to support this podcast, you can find our merch on www.wadingintothevoid.com.
Click the little square that says merch. Merch. And it'll bring right in to our spread shop.
And Nat, why don't you give them a quick little rundown on how they can support us on Patreon if they feel so inclined.
Boom. So, if you go to Patreon, you just go into the little address bar, search Wading Into the Void. We are the first and only people that pop up because of our amazing name. We have multiple tiers, and Katie so graciously reorganized them and made them way better than they used to be, and we're actually going to do them. So, go check them out. Check out the tiers. There's a bunch of different tiers, so you just go look at the pricing and what you'll get for each of them. I can't name all of them off the top of my head, but
they start at $5 a month.
Yeah. So if you want to support us that way, you surely can. That would be amazing, and we'd love to provide extra content for you in relation to that. We also have the ability for donations through Spotify for podcasters. We have a link right at the top of our show page. If you just click the link that says support this podcast, and you can make donations similar to Patreon, except you don't really get anything in return, and I'm pretty sure you can donate as little as $1. So if you are like, don't really want to spend $5, rather spend $1, go to Spotify for podcasters, put in your $1. And that would make me cry. And $1 makes me holla.
Honey boo boo child. Until next time, Phantom Fam, we hope you keep your teeth in your head where they belong, that you don't smell King's gnarly cigarette smoke, and that Skippy don't bite you or pull your hair unless you're into that. Bye, everyone, and you'll catch you next time.
Bye.